Part 2. If he's saying, Yahweh spoke to Moshe saying, okay, yeah, I got that, throw it away. But wait a minute. If it's saying the stipulations, like a bear following you, are bringing either the pasture or the plague of whatever Yahuwah has declared, that it's possible to draw something out of that declaration. To draw something out, well, how do you do that? So then you get this picture of the story of Moshe. Why was he named Moshe? Well, his mother didn't name him that. Wasn't it the princess of Egypt, Pharaoh's daughter, that named him Moshe? Why? Because he was drawn out of the water. Or did she name him that? Or he was just called, hey, that kid you found in the Nile River that you drew out of the water. Just call him the kid drawn out of the water, Moshe. So his whole life he's just known as the guy who was drawn out of the water. But in this context here, it's how do you draw out of Yahuwah's declarations something that he was saying that you otherwise can't just read? So when David in Psalms 119 verse 18 says, open my eyes, Elohim, that I can see the Nephilim, the Nun, Pei Lamed Aleph, that's paleo or Pela, Vav Tav would be plural, Peleo, Pei Lamed Aleph Vav, means hidden, it means wonderful. So David was saying, I know there's some hidden stuff in here that I just can't see. It's not obvious in the surface narrative of the text, and I can't necessarily get it just by studying. Will you please open my eyes so I can comprehend it? That's Psalms 119, verse 18. So what I'm suggesting is that right here, that what was spoken, what Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, La'amer, saying, is also saying something can be drawn out of these fine, high utterances. They're not just words and commands. Well, that's the first sentence. And it's like, you don't get that if you don't look at it. And the way you'll get it is if you sit there and stare at each letter for a while. And then the next letter, then look at the two letters combined and spelling a word, then look at how each letter finds itself in the alphabetic sequence. Come back and look at that and reference that. And it's like, why did he spell these words this way? Why did he arrange these things like this? What was he doing? See, if you think this is some old crazy guys in another culture who didn't know nothing, they just had fish bones and oxen and camels, and when I say fish bones, it's like, well, the body is a fish hook and the stomach looks like the backbone and ribs of some fish that you filleted. So, so what do we care about that? If I appropriate Yahuwah as the artist, the administrator, the Aleph guy, the author of the Hebrew alphabet, then I can bet there's something in it that nobody else can see unless he opens our eyes to it. And if he says, you got to look at what I said and what I told Moshe to write, look there. That's a clue that there's this task at hand that we can engage in. And then it says, Dabar al b'nei Israel ve'amerta elham moedi Yahweh asher tekra atam makrai kodesh Allah ham moedi. That's a big mouthful. Dabar, word, speak, stipulate. Well, that's the same as the first word in verse 1, but he's saying, speak to, Aleph Lamed hyphenated to B'nai Israel. So B'nai, Ben is son, but B'nai would be sons. Is he saying this is the sons of Israel, or is it the children of Israel? Is it exclusive of the females? Not necessarily. So we could make the assumption, and other people would disagree, but let's just make the assumption he's talking to all of us. who are Israel. Speak to, see, the prefix letter or the suffix letter yod after the word ben makes it mine. It's personal. My children of Israel. Speak to my children of Israel. Well, if Israel is done away with, they're all a bunch of idiots who don't believe in Jesus, so they're going to burn in hell, then he's talking to the church, then we can close the book on this page right here and say it doesn't matter. Well, why were they disciples meeting on the day of Shavuot? Because in Leviticus 23, it talks about Shavuot. Verse 15, you will count for yourselves from the morrow of the rest day, from the day when you bring the omer of the waving, 7 weeks, they shall be complete. That's why they were meeting there. So somebody could say, well, then it wasn't necessarily when Jesus died on the cross that he ripped apart, like ripping the veil in the temple, ripped apart the commands from the observation, but it might have been that day, the birthday of the church, ripped the veil between the observance of the disciples for Shavuot and the rest of the church ever after, to never have to keep the regard of Shavuot. You got to think, is the modern day people following that Acts chapter 2 event B'nai Israel or not? If they are B'nai Israel, then we better read this. If you're not B'nai Israel, sons, my children of Israel, well, then who are you, what are you, and where do you find your instruction? But this, then when it goes on to say, Ve'amerta, and declare or address, speak to them in the form of a significant address, like the Gettysburg Address, like the Declaration of Independence, that American forefathers wrote up in July of 1776. That's a mer, this great, fine, high utterances of great significance. Aleph Lamed Hey Them. Aleph Lamed means motion toward. Hey Mem. Ham is where we get the word THEM. EM. Hey Mem is kind of like it's the plural suffix third person. So declare to them, and then here's this word spelled Mem Vav Ayin Dalet Yod. Moedi. And then the word Yahweh. Moedi Yahweh. He didn't say this is here. He didn't say this is their festivals. The word Moedi is translated festival. We'll look at that in a moment. But he says this is Moedi of Yahuwah. Well, isn't every day in heaven a party day? Why does Yahweh have special party days in heaven, in his kingdom in the sky? But so apparently, even where there's no time, if time is earthbound and there's no time in the heavens, apparently that's not a true concept, because if he has Moedi in the heavenly realms, because they're his, because the Yod suffix means my personal, then somehow what he does in that heavenly realm of no time is fit, joined, is vav, synchronous to human regard of time on the face of the earth. See, I'm just trying to get that from looking, because mem prefix, mem vav, ayin dalet yod, a mem prefix can be either time or place, space. Place is where in space, where on the face of the earth. Right there in the city of Jerusalem, for example, is known as Ha-Makom, the place. The Makom, Kufav Mem. Well, Kumi Ori, arise. So Yeshua, after he rose from the dead, 40 days later, he combed up into the sky, and the angel said he's going to comb, he's going to come back, where we get the word come back to the same spot, put his feet down on the Mount of Olives right there. So even though Kuf Mem or Kuf Mem means to arise or to rise up or to dig a hole and plant like an amad, like a pillar that locked in place, teeth right where they go next to each other, the Hebrew alphabet letters right where they go. The letter Mem means where it's at, but it also can mean away from where it's at. It's both. Mem can be the object of use to turn, it says in the dictionary, a word that's not a physical noun of substance, but put the letter mem and it turns it into a noun of substance. So it's not of substance. So for example, if you know something, well, that's not a noun, but knowledge is a noun, but it's not a substantive noun. But if you put mem in front of, say, dalet ayin, it becomes that which is knowable or that which is known or the knowledge of something. So mem gives something a location. So when we were saying last week and other times that aleph is an immaterial state of having an idea and bet is to put it into format, mem as a prefix does the same thing. It locates or identifies or gives the concept of the word some sort of tangibility. And then ayin dalet, if you look in the dictionary, it means witness or testimony. But this ends with a yod suffix. It makes it personal. My witness or testimony. The object or the time or the place of my witness or testimony, Yahuwah. But if you look at ayin dalet yod, it means bejewelment and ornamentation, adornment. Well, that's like putting on a ring or wearing a necklace or wearing a robe of state or wearing a fancy hat, or maybe it's just having a great sports car. It's something of grandeur. And because that word ayin dalet means to witness or testify, and the yod suffix means it's his own personal time or place or object bearing witness of what? His identity, his heart, his kingdom, his rule, his great plan, his orchestration, all that. It's non-specific, but if Yahweh says, I've designed something in the heavens which engage time and place of my people Israel, my children of Israel, on the face of the earth, correlated, synchronous to their lifestyle, whatever they're involved in, whether it's planting season or harvest season or blazing hot or freezing cold. He's just, in fact, if he says it's extracted from the place of where he spoke, well, those are words, those are letters. So if you mem vav ayin dalet, remember, what is a mem? Well, if mem is a womb and nun is the baby that develops and births in the room until it jumps out. So you have mem, which is 40, like there's 40 weeks of gestation for a human in a womb, in a woman, and then the baby births. Well, that number nun is 50, which is also the word for jubilee, like counting 50. So because the Talmudim were counting 50, what was birthed? Was it the birthday of the church? Or was it the noon of out of the mem of counting ayin dalet? What's dalet? Well, dalet's a door. Well, when you're birthed from a portal, a door of the woman. What woman? What's being birthed? Mem vav ayin. So if I could say, well, let's look at mem vav ayin in the dictionary. Or I could just look at mem ayin, because the yods and vavs are, like I said, the wild cards. Page, I think it's 365 here. 364. In the Klein's dictionary, there is no mem ayin. So then I look at mem ayin hey, because that's kind of like this feminine suffix, or mem ayin vav. Mem ayin hey is a grain, a small coin, a small weight. It's just a little dot, like a dot above the eye, a little tiny seed. Remember, Yeshua said something about if you have faith like the size of the grain of the mustard seed. Well, that's basically what mem ayin is, like a little poppy seed, just a small like a penny, a small coin, a small weight, a kernel. Mem, ayin, hey. Mem, ayin, vav, hey is iniquity or something perverted, distortion. How does that work? So if you're trying to study the language, if you look at the derivations, the derivatives, I'm going to look up mem vav ayin and see what it says here. So see, you have to learn to recognize the modern Hebrew letters if you're going to do this. This is on page 327. There's mem vav ayin dalet. There's no mem vav ayin, but mem vav ayin dalet. Hey, that's the word we're looking at. It means time and place, right? Well, here, page 327, appointed place of a soldier or a rank. If you tell a soldier, you stay over there and watch that road, or you stand there on the wall, or you stand sentry, a guard over here and watch this truck, make sure nobody comes up to mess with it. Okay, yes, sir. The soldier does what he's told. A rank is this soldier has learned a certain amount of stuff and I can trust him. So if he's a private or a sergeant or a captain or a colonel, there's different expectations put upon him. Mem vav ayin dalet also means forewarned or cautioned. It also means directed. It also means mem vav ayin dalet hey. Well, that now it has the hey suffix, which is revealing something. Instead of the yod suffix, it says a place appointed for refuge, meeting place. Well, see, I found this by looking for, what's mem vav ayin? That's the benefit of the dictionary. You bump into these other things. So now I have to put this and say, well, wait a minute, I thought these were appointed times. I thought these were festivals and ceremonial feast days. But here it says, forewarned or cautioned. Well, remember the word dabar means speak to my children of Israel and tell them where the pasture is, the place of refuge, and where the plague is. I'm warning you, a plague is about to happen, or if you do certain things, you'll fall off the cliff. Same sort of consequence. Directed. He's directing, because the yod suffix means these are my personal directions. Yahuwah is saying to my children of Israel, these are my personal directions for your benefit of refuge and for your forewarning, caution to what? Be safe from the plague? Meeting place or club. Mem vav ayin dalet vav noon. Oh, so I know that if I put vav noon at the end, it doesn't change the word. It just says, well, if mem is a place, this is the place where those people who are doing this meet. This is their place. It's possessive somehow to have the vav noon ending. So what? Well, what does the word Zion mean? Mount Zion. Zion, the city of the Most High. There isn't a place really called Zion. It doesn't even exist. There was a mountain I heard that they excavated and got rid of over there in Jerusalem. But what is Zion? It's almost like this mythical city of Camelot, the mythical city of Jerusalem or the New Jerusalem, Zion. But Zadi Yod is to give a command, a military officer giving a command that he expects his soldiers to go to the place appointed. So Vav Nun of Zadi Yod Vav Nun is all those soldiers who are really in the employment or in the military forces, the Zadi Bet Aleph Vav Tav of Yahuwah. So when you say Yahweh's a vote, well, that's his name. He's got angel armies. He's also got human beings that are doing what he said. That's Zion. Like a soldier at post, living into his rank as learned, as taught, trained, and expected. Hey, that's the word Aleph Mem Nun. Amen. Abraham had ha'amunah, the faith, because he did what he was told. And because he did what he was told, he had refuge in the commands of Yahuwah that he engaged his attention and his behavior to, tying all these things together. So when it says moedi Yahweh, if it's translated, these are the appointed times, it's a lot more than that. It's like if you're Yahweh's children, doing what he said, receiving the benefits, which is refuge and favor, just pleasing him because he said so. But also we're outpacing the bear following us if the bear is bringing the plague. The next word here is asher, aleph shin resh. Well, yod shin resh of Israel and aleph shin resh, this word here, look in the dictionary, walk straight. It also means praiseworthy, blessed, happy, to validate, authenticate, confirm, corroborate, right, straight, true, just. Yashar El, Yod Shin Resh, Aleph Lamed, Ashar. This is the actual, real, worthwhile, active truth. This is the truth. And then it says Tav Kuf Resh Aleph Vav, Takrao, Takro. Like a rooster, Takro. Maybe it's pronounced like that. But you look in the dictionary, Tav Kuf Resh means puncture a tire. Puncture a tire. Remember I said earlier, you're going somewhere and all of a sudden, oh, I got a flat tire. Something happened. It means something happened. Like a flat tire. I mean, anymore, we got pretty good tires these days. They don't get punctures very easily. Back in the olden days, people would get flat tires all the time. That's why they carried the spare right there in the front of the car, and they had tubes, and you have to learn how to patch the tube. Then they had tubeless, then they have steel-belted tires, and punctured tires are a rarity compared to the early days of automobiles. But takra mean, and the vav suffix referring to it, tav prefix meaning this is something happened. And then you have aleph tav mem. Well, aleph tav, hey, typically is translated you. Aleph tav mem, here with the mem suffix like hey mem, only this is tav mem. It basically means they. If it's kaf mem, it means you all in the plural. So tav mem. Mem is the plurality suffix. Yod mem is a plural also. And then the next word is mem kuf resh aleph yod. Well, the word tav kuf resh aleph vav and mem kuf resh aleph yod is almost the same word. At least the kuf resh aleph is the same. Instead of the tav prefix, there's a mem prefix, and instead of a vav suffix, there's a yod suffix. So what's the difference? The vav means his or theirs, second or third person possessive, whereas the yod is first person possessive, meaning my. Mem, again, is the place or the time or the occasion, and tav is just places it somewhere in time. This is going to happen. This has happened when something happens. An incident happened. So that's page 715 if you have the red dictionary. If you look at page 591 for kuf resh aleph or mem kuf resh. Well, mem is a prefix, so what's kuf resh? Kuf resh means cool, cold. Kuf vav resh, kur. Like the beer, Coors, you know, up in the Colorado Rockies. They say, oh, it's the water, and they show you snow-covered mountains. Do they know that the word kur in Hebrew means cool, cold, to be increased in value, to be precious, dear, and of great worth? You don't know that in English. I mean, you may not even like the taste of that liquid refreshment, but it might be that they named it that on purpose because of the Hebrew word. Maybe it was just some guy's name. C-O-O-R, English phonetics. But you read that it also means to cover with a roof, to place beams and make a roof. So if you have a gazebo out by the lake, like we did last Shabbat in Nebraska there, somebody filmed, just so you know, somebody videoed at least 30 minutes, maybe more, of a talk that I thought was pretty good. But anyway, I'm not sure whether anybody has record of it or where it can be gotten, but it might be worthwhile. But we were sitting in the gazebo. So this fellow, Brent, who owned the property, he built a pond, filled it with water, planted some trees around it, and built this gazebo. And it's like, when you have this cover, it's like, hey, we can sit in the shade. It started raining and it was really nice. We're just sitting out there and this storm came over and we had a real nice day. That's the meaning of the word tav kuf resh and mem kuf resh. Something happened. Nobody punctured a tire, but something happened. What happened? We got together, and even when the storm was there, we were covered with a roof, and so it was a real nice afternoon. He had barbecued some food that he had raised. It was a great thing. Well, for this to be this great thing makes it cool. Yod kuf resh, to be precious, dear, and increased in value. But see, kuf resh aleph also means to be invited, or to just happen to be invited. Something just happened to happen. It accidentally, well, just, I got a flat tire. How'd that happen? I was provoked to come to Shavuot. Somebody asked me to come to Sukkot, or to join them on Shabbat, or to listen to a video to learn how to read Hebrew. Kuf resh aleph means learn how to read scripture. Makra then means the time and place appointed by Yahweh as a soldier in his zavot, under his command to learn to read scripture. So if Shavuot is a makra kadesh, kuf dalet shin, the next word, then this is the appointed time at the appointed place that Yahweh commanded Zadi Vav for his people, his military forces, to very specifically learn to read his Hebrew scripture, because it's the place where it bears witness and testimony of who we are, what our heart is concerning his command. But it also bears witness and testimony of his identity, his kingdom, his agenda, what he's all about. It's the ayin dalet. So if somebody has a meeting and says, hey, does somebody got a witness? Does somebody have any testimony you want to give? And so the disciples all got together on the day of Pentecost, and we're talking about the wonderful things he's done. They were ayin daleting. They were bearing witness in their life, engaging the understanding, the reality of his presence in their life. That's what this is about. But it very specifically is about making your life better, like putting beams on a roof and putting the roof of the gazebo on so that you can enjoy the place by the cool, refreshing lake that you built in your own backyard, and then causing an incident to happen by inviting people over to sit there and experience a wonderful day on the face of the earth, because Yahuwah said so. So everything we sat and did, and everything that this man named Brent prepared, was a makra kodesh for the moedi Yahuwah. But it looked like just a day in his backyard having a picnic. It was actually Shabbat. And then the next three words of this sentence here of Leviticus 23:2 says, Allah, Aleph Lamed Hey, simply translated these, but Aleph Lamed Hey also means deified, or this is specifically Elohim's business. Then the word Hey Mem, which means they, and then Mem Vav Ayin Dalet Yod, Moedi. So in other words, these last three words are a statement. These, they, my Moedi. And again, the word Ayin Dalet Yod, choice, best, treasure, ornamented, bejeweled, adorned. Yahuwah is saying, I have invented these moedi for my people under my command to sit and listen. And the proof that they're listening is that they're doing what I said, like a soldier appointed to stand there until I tell them not to stand there any longer. And they're doing it because I said so. And this is the proof by which I have ornamented myself. So does that mean he has ornamented himself with the moedim? Yeah, maybe. But what if he ornaments himself by his people learning his language and doing what he said? That's another type of bejewelment. And if Yahweh says that Israel is his heritage, Israel is the only future that he has invested in the humans inhabiting the face of this earth, then who's Israel? Well, there's 12 tribes, but that's just a pool of genetic resources out of which jump, you might say, those who are willingly, proactively of the heart to do what he said, to listen to his voice, to do what he said. He goes on in verse 3, Sheshat, Shin Shin Tav. Well, Shin Shin is the number 6. If you put a yod in between Shin Yod Shin or Shin Vav Shin or Shin Lamed Shin is the number 3, but Shin Yod Shin or Shin Vav Shin also is rejoicing, and it's the color for white. So Sheshat is 6 white rejoicing. So somebody told me, hey, you know that song as a kid, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be driving 6 white horses when she comes. Well, that's 6 white horses. That's the 6 days of work. It didn't say 6 grueling days of grief, of travail, of adversity, and then, finally, a day of rest. There's something about 6 yod mem can be read as yod, mem yod mem. Mayim is water, but yim is the plural for days, but yod vav mem is day. Why don't they have yod vav mem, yod mem? That's just the way Hebrew works. That's just the way they do stuff. So just so you know, yod mem can mean he will water, yod prefix, water, mem yod mem, but mem yod is the word for who, W-H-O. It's like, who gets the water? The ones that rejoice for 6 days? I mean, you could read this however you want. And when somebody is trying to, bust my chops and say, you're just making stuff up, or you don't even know, or you're telling people to make up their own mind, it's like, I'm encouraging people to think for yourself, to make it your own, to apply your mind, your heart, your time. Shin, Shin, Tav, 6 white rejoicing. But Shin can be a prefix that means that which belongs to. Teeth, fire. What else is Shin? Shin Tav, that's where we get the word sit or set, or that which is a basic platform or foundation, the pedestal that you put other things upon it. Water. Didn't he make the world first with water, and then he separated the land from the water, then he built things on the land? I mean, I can sit there and start navigating, meditating, pondering. So for someone to be encouraged to do their own navigating, pondering, contemplating, enjoying the scenery as you go, and somebody else to get all upset because you're not commanding and focusing and putting curbs and guardrails and making people go down a certain venue, an avenue of thought. So for me to say, hey, contemplate your own calendar. I'm not going to, at least at this point in time, mandate for anybody a particular calendar. There's a bunch of different calendars to think about, to consider. Kind of like if you go to school and the teacher says, I want you to do the investigation of all the possibilities, and then we'll talk about the details. Maybe you could forsake some possibilities and zero on in a few possibilities. Instead of having a vast array, you'll just have a few. It's worth the investigation. That's all I'm trying to do. Just so that's clear. So like like the foundation of water upon which the world was built, or even the universe perhaps, 6 days of white. See, the word Leban means white also, but Leban also means bricks. It also means to do the laundry, bleaching, making white clothing out of otherwise dirty or stained clothing. Well, if you can make something clean or clarified, that's similar to bet resh. So there's some kind of task of making something pure and clean by using water for 6 days, rejoicing. And then the word is tav ayin shin hey. Well, ayin shin hey, if you look up in the dictionary, there's a list of here, I'll read them. There's probably a dozen different words in English that are translated as ayin shin hey. Typically, it's just work. 488, ayin shin hey. To do or make. He did. He worked, he labored, acted, dealt, like deal cards, or I'm going to deal with you later. To deal with something is to take a particular focus of attention. Produced, producing a film. Chicken producing eggs. Yielded, performed, accomplished. To accomplish something, to perform. Play acting, perform a sport. What does this mean? He brought about, caused, affected, appointed, acquired, gained, spent his time. To spend, does that mean, Asha means to spend money, to spend time, to do something? If you spend time sleeping, are you ayin shin hey ing? These are these concept words about what the word means. Was done, was made, was produced, was performed, was accomplished. That's spelled nun ayin shin hey. So as you read this, you realize, well, put the nun in front of ayin shin hey, and in English it's the word was with the ed after the verb action. Something was done, was offered, was observed, was used, caused somebody to do, pressed, squeezed, made, formed, done by force, positive command. And then ayin shin vav yod, so you realize that the difference between ayin shin hey and the difference of ayin shin vav yod is the suffix made, done, accustomed to, fitting, or suitable. It's also constraint or compulsion, pressure, squeezing. So something made suitable, something forced, something caused. So somebody is, with their mind, with their efforts, is compelling. But it's also fitting and suitable. So that's just it's not necessarily work. Not necessarily work. Then there's this word, mem lamed aleph kaf hey. Well, lamed aleph, that's the word no or non or negative. Lamed kaf, laka. That means you go, or this is yours, or for yourself. And then there's a mem prefix. Well, what is that mem? Remember we talked about that, meaning the place of, the time of. If you tell somebody to go, here, you go do something. Well, that's putting somebody under the command. This word mem lamed aleph kaf is also the word angel. An angel is also known as a messenger. So mem lamed aleph kaf is one who's told to go do something. Well, mem lamed kaf is the word for king, or one who takes counsel. Lamed kaf, go do this. You go, laka. Mem lamed kaf would be then the time or the place or the one who does what they're told to do. Cause somebody to do something under your command. Would that be Asha Malaka? The next words, Beyom HaShavia, on the 7th day, Shabbat, Shabbaton, Shin Bet Tov. Shin Bet means to sit and dwell. Shabbat Shabbaton is sit and be one who really sits. It's got the vav nun suffix, one who's doing it. Doing what? The Shabbat. Like Zion, Zadiod, vav nun. Zadiod is the command, Zadiod, vav nun. Zion is the one under the command, doing the command. So Shabbat, Shabbaton, is one who is Shabbating. The Shabbat is the command that the ones who are doing that command of Shabbating. Makra kadosh. Hey, that's that same word, mem kuf resh aleph. So here is that the one doing the Shabbat is like sitting under this gazebo. You've got the roof over your head, a place of refuge, a place of provision. You are engaged in the incident that just happened. What just happened? It's the seventh day. And the word seventh, shin bet, yod, ayin, yod, the yod suffix makes it personal, my, possessive. But the word seven also means to swear a vow. So there's a yod between bet and ayin, shavia. So that has some effect like yods and vavs, but if you take them out, if you take out the yods and vavs in between the other letters, so you can see the root of what's happening, it's like the seventh day of Shabbat is the evidence, the witness that you are listening, and it is itself like swearing a vow or keeping the vow that you swore when you took the oath of office to be his people, to be a soldier in his zavot, to be under his command. I said I'd be under command. I said I'd do whatever you said to do, so I'll keep Shabbat. And if you don't keep Shabbat, if you don't rest on the seventh day, you're breaking the vow. Now you're under the curse. Now the bear that's chasing you, following after you, has authority to plague you, to destroy something of your interest. Goes on to say, call, kaf lamed, which means all, each, every, or any, kaf lamed. Mem lamed aleph kaf, malak ta, tav suffix. Well, that's just the word translated work. All your work, any work, every work. Obed, well, ayin bet dalet is also the word for work. Well, ayin bet dalet also, obed, as in Obadiah, and obedience is the word for worship. So it's interesting that the word obed can mean work and worship, which is not work. Just the way that the language works, but it means to be tanning hides. I mentioned that you look at the word Nebraska. How would you spell that? Well, because it's phonetics, just messing around. You can spell it different ways. Is the S sound a sheen or a samic? And is it bet resh or bet resh aleph or bet resh I? Bet resh samic means to tan hides. Obed also means to tan hides. There's another word too. I forget what it is. I saw it earlier, but that's a lot of work. You got to skin the animal that you've killed, and then you've got to stretch the hide, and you've got to scrape it, and you got to pour, whether it's chemical or organs from the brain onto the hide to tan it, and then you've got to tend it. It's a lot of work to tan a hide. So I could read this that says, when he says lo, which means do not, and then tav, ayin shin vav. Well, ayin shin vav, that's ayin shin hey, that's force, compel, work, produce. Don't produce hard, strenuous labor of anything that you're trying to get accomplished. So some people say, don't go to the restaurant, don't go to the store, don't have your servant work for you. Where do they get that? What does that mean? It comes from this verse right here. Like the calendar, that is subject to your own interpretation, and I could tell you what I think it means, but I'm telling you the exact words. So if you really want to determine for yourself how do you be Yahweh's B'nai Israel, doing what he said, listening to his voice, observing his commands, if he says, call Malakat Obedah Lo Ta'asho. Don't do it on the seventh day. Just don't do it. Gosh. So the Jews, at least as according to fable, they go, we don't know what this means, but we don't want to do something wrong. We don't want to get in trouble. We don't want the bear to get us. Ask a rabbi. He'll tell you what to do. Don't turn on a light switch. Don't push a button on an elevator. What else? Don't drive in your car. I remember hearing the story once of a guy that was a rabbi who was on his way to a Christian meeting to talk to them on Friday night, and boom, the sun hit the rise, and that's it. Get out of the car and walk the rest of the way. And it's like, wow, this guy takes it seriously. And he had a whole crowd following him, kind of rejoicing with him as he walked to the venue rather than drive the car. Wait a minute. Isn't it much harder work to walk the last mile or two or whatever it was rather than just finish riding in the car? Well, to them, driving in the car was breaking this instruction. There was can't remember the name of the movie. Gene Wilder, I believe, was in it. A Western movie. Frisco Kid, I think it was maybe what it was. And he was being chased by a bunch of adversaries, and all of a sudden the sun hit the horizon, and he, on Friday night, and stopped at Shabbat, and him, there's another guy go, what do you do? We got to evade the guys coming to kill us. No, it's Shabbat. I got to get off my horse. It's like, are you nuts? Hey, I would rather evade the bear that's following us for not doing what Yahweh said than to worry about the bad guys following us on earth. And it's like, where's the reality? The point is, you know, that's verse 3 of Leviticus 23. And then from there, verse 4 in English, reading this text, these are the appointed festivals, the makra kodesh of Yahuwah, the holy convocations, which you shall designate in their appropriate time. And it goes on to talk about the 14th of the month in the afternoon is the time of Pesach. And then it goes on to the week of unleavened bread and Shavuot, verse 15, and so forth. It's another part of the story. But what I'm saying is, if we back up to verse 2, looking at verse 1, where Yahweh says, I'm going to tell you things that I want you to write down. And then I'm going to make these declarations, a mare, which you can draw things out of. And what you draw out is to his grandeur, his ornamentation, and he's going to give us things that look like commands, Zadi Yod. And if we want to be under his command, Zadi Vav, I think there's one word in the dictionary, Zadi Vav Vav Tav, which means to man the crew, to be on his team, to be one of his ilk. Then this is what you do. This is what it looks like. Okay. And if you do this, it'll be the finding of the place of refuge. It'll be the wearing of his bejewelment, so that we who are bejeweled by him, his ways, will be seen by any other creatures in the universe to be his bejewelment. So someone was telling me that in reading a verse about the Zitziot, we wear the Zitziot because he said so. There's a place in both Deuteronomy and Numbers. Why? So that when we look at we see the blue thread, it'll remind us, oh, do what he said. So we wear the Zitziot to remind us that we're his. But the way it's phrased with where the Yod suffix is that it's kind of like we are his Zitziot. We are his ornamentation. And wherever he sees us doing what he said, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like the rainbow. He said he'll put the rainbow in the sky to remind him, no matter what we do, he's not going to destroy this whole place with a flood like Noah's flood ever again. It's a reminder to him. So that's a reminder. Don't smack these guys in this same way. But when we are keeping his instructions, keeping his moadim, keeping his Shabbat, he looks at us and is reminded, these are my people. This is my heritage. These people listening to my voice, keeping my ways, walking in my statutes, the things that I've declared as stipulations for what does it take to be my people. These people are my adornment. Which means if you, like a university or a college, will have certain team colors. Here in Oregon, University of Oregon, U of O, is like an emerald green and this bright yellow. Oregon State, which is not many miles away, is orange and black. And so when you have these teams coming together on the football field or some other sport, you see green and yellow, you see orange and black, you know exactly what's going on, and you've got this engagement. So when Yahuwah's people keeping his moadim, oh, you know exactly what team you're on. You see somebody else who's doing Sunday, Christmas, and Easter, boom, you know which team they're on. You see somebody with a blue thread in their zitzio, you know what team they're on compared to somebody who doesn't have a blue thread in their zitzio. Maybe they have a good reason. I'm not going to disparage them, but he said, put a blue thread. And then the sea creature, as I understand, the sea creature by which they extracted the dye which gave the blue, and depending on whether it was sunlight or not, day or night, when they extracted that chemical dye in the sea creature, whether it was a snail or a squid, the blue turned out to be more turquoise or more purple. That's why there's variations of this color techilit. Well, the word techilit, why is that the blue? Tav, kaf, lamed, tav. Well, that's kind of like tabanit, the word for pattern, tav, bet nun yod, tav. Well, how do you read that? Well, it just means pattern. That's the way it's defined in the dictionary. But bet nun yod, bet nun is son, bet nun yod is my son. Tav, bet nun yod, tav. I can look at the spelling of the word and say, my son is finding refuge contained within tav, which is the sign of the covenant, or the tav is the letter that means a letter, the letter that means a marker, a sign, or it's kind of like him telling one of his melachim, his angels, go through the populace and with an inkhorn and put a big X or mark the forehead of those who groan and travail over the detestations done in the land. And when the tribulation comes, they will find refuge. They will be protected because they walk in the ways and have the heart of Yahuwah, their Elohim. And those who don't care, or those who don't know, or those who have no heart for his ways, they're left unprotected. They're left to be the prey of the predator, of whoever is empowered to consume them at that time, whether it's the devil or the foreign armies or whatever is going on. So this is all stuff of life and death. If tav bet nun yod, tav is the word for pattern, tabanit, as in Exodus 25, tabanit mishkan, the mishkan pattern. What's techilit? Tav, kaf, lamed, tav. Well, kaf, lamed, hey, kala is bride. It means all of it. It means to be completely consumed. To be completely consumed by Yahuwah's stuff. Kaf, lamed. All, every, each, anyone who just says everything Yahweh says we will hear and we will do. Contained within the terms of the covenant. Tav, kaf, lamed, tav. That's the color blue, techilit. So when you see the color blue, it's not just blue, and then in Israeli lingo, they call it techilit. It's this reminder that says, I swore a vow that whatever Yahweh said to do, I'm going to do. I'm his people. He's my Elohim. Okay. Not going to argue. I'm not going to pitch a fit. I'm not going to fight about it. I could question, I could wonder, I could study, I can discuss it with people with which is the better regard of the calendar. What does he want us to do? But whatever he said, all that he said, I'm in. That's the color Tehillit blue. Kaf Lamed, call. But Lamed Kaf is 2U. Yod Kaf Lamed. Those are the 3 letters in alphabetic sequence order. And you look in the dictionary, it means the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. But the Yod is a prefix letter, means he will. So I could read Yod Kaf Lamed, Yikal, as he who swears this vow to do all, Kaf Lamed, according to the Mishkan pattern, that's the Torah. He who swears or who signs up to do all that this Torah says and all that it contains, himself will prevail. He will be granted or given the capacity to contain it all and to prevail. So when someone says, can't do that, we can't. We humans were never expected to, have no capacity to. They're wearing team colors of not Yahweh's Ami Kadosh, my people who are Kadosh. It's the other team. It's the other side. I can't listen to those words. Greater minds than ours have tried to figure these things out and couldn't. No, there are no greater minds. We have the mind of Yahuwah. It's right here in these words. His Ruach means mind, heart, will, disposition. It also means courage. That invisible essence, that Alephness, which is imparted like the flames of fire on the head of those who were doing what he said, meeting when he said to meet, trusting him to be his people, and so empowered by his Ruach. And the Ruach can be, like I said before, these 22 letters, because the word Ruach means expanse, the expanse of the mind to comprehend, to contain, to prevail through any circumstance, because we have the refuge of his favor. And all we got to do is sit down on Shabbat, take a rest, quit working. All we have to do is count to 50 and have a party. Really? Is the dues that he extracts from his participants too severe? Too costly? Compared to what? And for us to cease working, tanning hides as Obed, as an act of worship, for us to not work as an act of worship, does it get any easier? And the way to figure this stuff out is to learn to read. And as you learn to read, it's like installing beams over the gazebo. Makur is also a well of water, like that pond that Mr. Brent built in his backyard to invite strangers from across the country to come and have a picnic barbecue on Shabbat. And that's Kadosh. That's Makra Kadosh. That's Moedi Yahweh. Yet who knows these things? Just those who would stop to learn to read, letter by letter, word for word, of all that Yahweh declared, that he declared in such a way that you can extract and pull out of it. It's hidden in what he said. But it's full of all this great stuff. Anyway, we're out of time for today, so here we are. And we'll look at Psalm 60 for next week.
Abiyallah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to come and to study one more time, Father, for your word is great and mighty and awesome, just as you are. Father, thank you. Thank you for the teaching today, and thank you, Father, for those who've gathered here today. Father, thank you for those who will listen on the platform, YouTube, and beyond, Father. May this word go out and not return void. It's in Yeshua's name I pray, amen.
I could make one suggestion. As I said, when he said in Psalm 60, he gave a banner to be lifted up to those who fear him on account of the truth. I looked at the entire chapter, and there's some great stuff in there that you can only see if you start looking at it word for word, letter for letter, and including that one verse. But I would suggest to people that maybe you do that this week. If you have time, look at Psalm 60 and see if you can figure out, even in the first verse, where he talks about the Manatzak Shoshan, even those two words, what is that saying? And I mention that word because in the phrase of that word, the song Mimakomka by Yam Ensemble, they mention these two words, Manatzak Natzakim, and they sing it really softly, but yet this word is dynamic. It's the most powerfully dynamic word in the entire vocabulary, if you know what it is. So I'm just suggesting that people do a little bit of research and try to get something out of it for yourself before we discuss it.
Okay. See you guys next week. I'm going to shut off this recording and the after show will start.